All right, Amari Hampton, RB2 in the NFL draft. Should be no surprise who is RB1. The Heisman Trophy runner-up himself, Ashton Jeanty, had one of the greatest all-time seasons we've ever seen. The greatest season we've ever seen in PFF college history from an advanced numbers perspective, Dalton, but one of the greatest seasons we've ever seen from a running back in college football history.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, I think it speaks to there are 4 or 5 other backs in this class who might have been RB1 in a weaker class last year.
Yeah.
This guy is clearly the best among this group.
Yeah.
It's the rest 2 through 6 or 7 here is their own argument.
We're talking about Bijan Robinson, Saquon Barkley with Ashton Jeanty.
This is that level.
Yeah.
He is an entirely different. I got to be honest with you, and I know people are going to pick apart and do this and that. I'm sitting here with my sheet. I've got strength and weakness boxes. I don't have a weakness for Ashton.
Oh, I have nitpick. That's all I got. I have nitpicking. That's it.
You find some individual play where he did something wrong, and I'll go, okay, watch the next 10. I mean, just vision, and I just keep loving that we got to talk to him last offseason, and I always love talking to those guys that we get to about, okay, what's your football role model here? What's the style of game you're trying to go after? And he said 3 things. I want the contact balance of Alvin Kamara, the power of Marshawn Lynch, and the route running like Christian McCaffrey. There it is. I mean, there it is. And again, I keep going back to also his vision. I've been so impressed with his vision throughout his entire career. It looks like he sees what defensive fronts are going to do before they do it, right? Whether it's zone or man or who, I don't care what scheme he's in. He's just great in all of them, right? And I think, it's not going to matter the scheme fit. It's not going to matter. Just functionally block for this guy, and he will make it happen because by any measure, whether it's his lower body strength, whether it's a stiff arm, whether he's going to shake you, whether he's going to run around you, he refuses. He refuses to be tackled. He just refuses. And I think he even saw it in that playoff game against Penn State where he still put up 100 yards. He broke, what was the final number, 16 or 18 tackles he broke in that game. It ain't him. He ain't the reason they lost to Penn State. That's for darn sure. I mean, and then you throw in the fact that we saw him in 2023. He had the highest receiving grade in the country in 2023.
Yep.
They just didn't use him like that this year. This guy was a receiver until his senior year of high school. He was a receiver and an edge defender. He just is the full package, and he proved it. It's not a Mountain West thing. He proved it against the national runners-up in Washington. He proved it against an elite defense in UCLA. This year against Oregon with 3 touchdowns just what more could you ask for? And I think for a back, when we always talk about here separating how good backs are and rushing grades and missed tackles force and things like that, you think about what can they do outside of the blocking, right? Because there's even plenty of backs in this class where I'll watch them some of the day 3 guys and go, okay, you get what's blocked for you. The number of explosive runs he creates when the play isn't blocked for shit.
Oh, when he's dead to rights, yeah.
When he's dead to rights, he's never dead to rights. It's just his tape is so good. There's a few guys where you watch him and you just watch his tape and you start laughing. You're like, what do I do with this? What am I supposed to say is wrong with this guy? Honestly, and the fact that to me, there could be arguments. Some people are going to come out and go, "Oh, I think this other guy is better than Jeanty." He's not. Stop. Ashton Jeanty's in his own, even amongst this disgusting amount of talent we've talked about today. Ashton Jeanty's on his own plane of existence here in this draft. And if he was taken in the top 10, say like the Raiders at 6, I wouldn't bat an eye.
So I'm just going to go over some of the numbers, the advanced numbers that we have for Ashton Jeanty, because it just puts into context how ridiculous he's been. And I want people to understand, too, this is not a Caleb Johnson thing where it came out of nowhere, right? Where it's like, oh, wow, this is a great year for Ashton Jeanty. He has been this freaking good his entire career at Boise State. In his true freshman season, 89.5 PFF grade, led all true freshmen in college football. As a sophomore, 94.9 PFF grade, led all running backs in college football. This past year, 96.6 rushing grade, the best in PFF college history. This past season as well, 1,970 yards after contact. Not rushing yards, yards after contact. 615 more than we've ever seen in college football. And the previous record holder was none other than Jonathan Taylor, one of the best running backs in the NFL for the Indianapolis Colts. 151 broken tackles, 47 more than the previous record. Who held that record? Bijan Robinson, one of the best running backs in the NFL right now as well for the Atlanta Falcons. In his career, Dalton, you ready for this? 99.9 rushing grade. If you don't know how PFF grades work, we grade on a 0 to 100 scale.
Perfect.
99.9 rushing grade. That's as good as you can get, folks. It truly is. Also, did not show it much as a junior, but if anyone tells you that Ashton Jeanty is not that good of a receiving back, do not listen to them. He is an outstanding receiving back. He tracks the ball like a wideout. He played wide receiver in high school as well before moving to running back. Made some impressive catches down the field. He led all backs in the country last year with 578 receiving yards. Also, just the averages he's had are ridiculous because his contact balance and low center of gravity don't, even though he had a crap ton of carries. He had 374 carries this year, still a 40% forced missed tackle rate on such a heavy volume, 5.25 yards after contact per attempt on such a heavy volume. It's not like, all those carries, tired him out. He was just getting better, it seemed like, in the fourth quarter. Scheme versatile, 96.6 career rushing grade on gap runs, 96.5 career rushing grade on zone runs as well. Now, the weaknesses, again, these are nitpicking. He had some fumbling issues in his career. His 10 career fumbles, 1.2% career fumble rate. That's 10th percentile for running backs. Willing pass blocker, but his size, he's about 5'9", 215. Likely will keep him from ever being elite as a pass blocker, but if that's it, it's just, okay, he's got to hold on to the football a little bit better, and as a pass blocker, it's whatever. That's it. That's all you can talk about with Ashton Jeanty. I really have nothing else in that. He has been incredible his entire career. Like I said, any holes you try to find in his game are nitpicking at best. Not only is he the easy number one running back in this year's draft, he is up there with Bijan Robinson and with Saquon Barkley as one of the best running back prospects in recent memory. And honestly, Don, I think that's where we should go with this conversation next is where would you stack him up with guys like Bijan and Saquon and even Adrian Peterson back in 2007 out of Oklahoma? Where do you stack him up in that one?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not that old, but he's one of the best college backs I've seen.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think as far as the context of this draft, not just among these running back rankings, but I think he's one of the 4 best football players in this draft. To me, I think the 4 best football players.
It might be 2 for me behind Travis Hunter.
I forget if I have him 2 or 3. I'm always flip-flopping him and Mason Graham. But to me, it's Travis Hunter, Ashton Jeanty, Mason Graham, and Abdul Carter. In some form or fashion, I think those are the 4 best football players in this draft. And the fact that, positional value being what it is and how high would you take a running back in this. But we saw Saquon went early. Ezekiel Elliott went early, and he was great at Ohio State, had a great run with the Cowboys, right?
Bijan went early.
Bijan went 8th overall. I think it's if you can get a player of that caliber, then you go ahead and maybe take that gamble. Let's just say if I'm the Raiders at 6, let's say maybe they sign, if it's Russell Wilson for a year or 2 or Sam Darnold to like a 3-year deal, right? And they want to go the veteran route at quarterback. I go, why would Jeanty be off the board at 6? I don't think there's any reason he should be off the board at 6. We've talked about him 6. There's been mock drafts I've seen with him 10 to the Bears, 12 to the Cowboys is a popular spot. If he starts getting much further than that, and I'm a team that's going, okay, I'm sticking to my board, and Ashton Jeanty's a top 5 player on the board maybe, I might have to start thinking about it even if I have like a decent option at tailback because this kid, he's special. This is among all these great talented players, and this is a special class, he's the crown jewel of it. He's just, it's that simple. He's just a special football player.
You want a hilarious stat that I just looked up real quick?
Absolutely.
So his total rushing yards this past year, he was 27 away from the record from Barry Sanders. Barry Sanders ran for 2,628 yards in 1988 at Oklahoma State. Jeanty was 2,601 at Boise State. He's one of only 2 running backs ever to rush for 2,600 yards in a season. The only other one is probably the greatest running back of all time in Barry Sanders. Dawn, his yards after contact would be the 34th most all-time.
Among total
rushing yards. One of the 35 greatest seasons of all time in terms of total rushing yards, he would be 34th in yards after contact.
Yeah. And again, I just don't – the one question that would normally happen – Boise State, what a great run of running backs they've had for the last 15 years. They've had so many of them. It's like very quietly one of the RBUs of college football. But did it repeatedly also against top competition, right? We keep going back to this where people, whoa, he played at Boise. No, he shredded Washington. He shredded UCF. He shredded Oregon, UCLA, even Penn State in a game where they didn't block for him at all. He broke 16, 18 tackles. That kid's a freak of nature. It's just that's where you're at. There's good backs and there's good players, and then there's freaks of nature. This is somebody who should not fall too far in this draft.
The fact that just in the history of college football, there's only been 33 running backs that have ever run for 1,970 yards or more, and he did that after contact this year. That's just
so
can't overthink it. Don't overthink it, folks.
This is, though I'm starting to hate the word generational.
Yeah.
I hate it because it's just now it's used too often with everybody who anybody feels like. But, boy, you talk about that list of backs, you better get one of them when you're talking about the Barkleys and Petersons of the world, and Jeanty's in that class.
Really quickly, because, all right, so you do remember Saquon and Bijan enough at college, right, coming out, where if you had to stack up those three, because I know Adrian Peterson's a little bit before our time, if you had to rank those three out of college, not knowing what they are in the NFL or what Saquon or Bijan, how good they are now, how would you stack those three up and how would you rank them?
Man, oh, man.
So I think that's the conversation we're with Jeanty. It's not even comparing him to Hampton or anyone else. It's comparing Jeanty to the greatest running backs we've seen out of college recently. It's tough.
Bijan, yeah, it's tough. I mean, you're talking about elite players.
Talking about probably two of the three best running backs in the NFL right now, right?
I mean, Saquon was special.
Saquon, Bijan, and maybe Derrick Henry is probably one of the other top.
Henry's the other one, but Henry also went lower and wasn't thought to be as versatile. So I actually think as prospects, Henry would be below all three of those guys.
They would, yeah.
I want to say Saquon won. He was just a freak of nature what he was doing. Remind me how Bijan was a really good receiver at Texas too, wasn't he?
And his force to tackle rates were outrageous. Like, it was like 50% or better.
That's a tough call between Jeanty and Bijan 2 and 3. That's really tight because I think they have similar skill sets. Man, that's hard.
I might do. Oh boy, I don't know. I don't know what I would do.
I think Saquon would probably be 1 because that was just. I mean, what he was doing over there was ridiculous.
Yeah.
Tough. That's tough. It's a good argument. The fact that we get to have
those
that
are the
argument
three
with them is ridiculous. But
those are the three, at least as long as I've been following the NFL draft, which has been the last 15 years or so. I mean, those are the three I can think of. Those are.
I mean, Zeke is highly drafted as he is up there, but that might be a funny. We might have to do that as an experiment here, as far as that goes, is at least maybe in the PFF context since 2014. I mean,
we can do that.
That's a pretty darn good group. We might have to figure that out as far as where he would rank among that group, and it's ridiculous. It's a great class, and to have that guy at the top of it, it's going to be a lot of fun to watch to see where he goes.
Hey, thanks for watching another episode of the PFF College Football Show. Please make sure you guys subscribe to the channel.
Also, subscribe to PFF Plus at subscribe.pff.com for all of the same data and grades that we use in our show, plus fantasy tools, betting tools, and our mock draft simulator.